Well, you can't trust County.
I know. We should probably mention that we just got to see each other and go see our friend's show in DC and celebrate your birthday. That was so fun. What a
I
day.
know, well, above the part of me getting older, seeing Jordan's show was incredible.
Well, super fun for us because it kind of turned out to be like a little bit of a psychological thriller true crime thing.
I did, yeah. I mean, Job's an amazing show. I had only heard
Yeah.
snippets about it, and I mostly went in blind. Did you know the show beforehand or no?
All I knew was that the main character in it, that our friend was playing Creepers, that her job was basically watching like dark web material and like making sure it didn't get passed, or that's what I thought before going into it, and then
That
making
is
sure
kind
it
of
didn't
true,
get
yeah.
passed
She's
onto other
she's a
channels.
moderator, right?
Yeah, like a content moderator, I guess.
hmm
So, and we've been talking about the dark web a lot, so I was like, ooh, this could be juicy. And it
It was
was.
super juicy. I can't
Yeah.
believe she does that show sometimes twice a day, but specifically on the weekend that we saw her, it was like two doubles,
Yeah.
2 day shows.
Yeah. And she hung out with us
Oh
the
wait,
whole
no,
day.
yes, two
Two
show
do
days.
what do people say? Two show
two show day.
two
Oh
show
no,
day. Two
two
doche.
two doche.
That's what
Oh
people
my
say.
god.
It's been a
Oh my
while.
god.
We've been out of the musical theater scene for a while, but oh
Leave it
my
in the
god.
past.
Do you feel any older?
Yes.
You do?
Absolutely.
This is that weird pocket of time where we're going to be the same age, but I will be older than you momentarily. Don't you worry.
I'm counting down the days. No, I was
Oh my
super
God.
excited we got to see it. Please go check out Job at the Signature Theater if you happen to be in the
Yeah.
DC area. It is phenomenal, and I think it's playing through like March 16th, I'm pretty sure, halfway through
think
March or
so.
towards the end of March. But
Yeah.
that was an amazing trip.
A
And I
lo-
just got back from New York, so here I am in CT with you.
Oh my God. Did you get to see anything, by the way?
No, I kind of scrapped
Ugh.
it. Truth be told, this sounds really awful, but because it was so cold, I
Yeah.
scrapped so many things because I'm like, I just like quite literally cannot travel to and fro. Like I just have to be in one place.
Yeah, I feel you. Today it was like absolutely frigid, and I just turned on my radiator so high. I was like, I can't do this.
Did you
It's-
run today?
I went out for like 15 minutes and I was like, I got to turn around. It was 18 degrees when I left my house, and I was like, I'm not doing this.
No, it's really bad.
Yeah.
I knew I'd gone soft. I didn't realize I'd gone that soft.
Exactly, baby. I mean, you were built to endure.
Not anymore. I am built to endure a lounge chair by the pool.
And 80-degree weather with no humidity,
Precisely.
honey. Oh my God. Well, speaking of cold, I'm excited to bring you a cold case today. I mean, I'm actually, before I go into this, I just want to preface that I feel like you and the creepers, this case is really going to piss you off. So, because it really pisses me off.
Oh.
It's one of those cases where the writing feels like it is so clearly written on the wall as to what happened, and yet this case has remained unsolved the last 10 plus years. And it also doesn't take, or actually took place not too far away from where I live. It takes place about an hour outside of DC over by the Chesapeake Bay. I don't know if you've ever been out there before.
I don't think so.
The
I mean,
Chesapeake-
if I was there, it was probably like an offshoot trip from like my middle school DC trip, maybe.
Okay. It's kind of like over by, it's actually confusing because I feel like there's two big bridges that go out across the Chesapeake Bay. But this bridge takes you out towards like the eastern shore of Maryland. And it takes place in an area called Stevensville. And it's locally a very infamous case, but I feel like it doesn't have a ton of pressure on it nationally, or at least it did for a brief period of time and not anymore. And it's weird because I think there's a bunch of clear parallels actually to the Mike Williams case, which we will have just covered after this,
Right.
when this episode comes out. Except I feel like with this case, we're in the gray area right now, like the gray area in the Mike Williams case where there were like those 17 years where we didn't have any answers. And then we finally got justice. I feel like with this case, we're in the gray right now. And I think that there's a way that we could bring some justice to this case and that the victim really deserves.
Interesting. It's
Um,
also, I
yeah,
mean, you said it's like in the 10-year postmark, but it's technically not very old then. So it must have been like 2014, 2015,
it's from 2013.
2013. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so right now we're still just like in this weird holding pattern with this case. And actually, I would even argue it feels like we're almost at like a dead end with it. Like I don't know how to exactly recalibrate, which we will totally get to all of that. But I wanted to bring this case today because I think one of the problems here is that there's just not enough pressure behind it, like I just said, on a national scale, because I haven't seen this case covered in many places. I literally only saw two other podcasts that have ever touched it. So
Interesting.
I wanted to do a deep dive because the way everything goes down, it just feels like we were robbed of a solve in 2013 when everything really came out about this case and in quick like something happened the day that it happened to the victim and then within like 3 weeks we got more answers. It wasn't this like extended thing and I wish there'd just been more pressure right then and there because I think we could have figured out what happened. But today's case centers around the initial disappearance of a woman named Robin Pope in March of 2013. And like I said, it takes place in Maryland in a town called Stevensville, which is just about an hour outside of DC, over the Chesapeake Bay. And to set the scene, the Chesapeake Bay is a very picturesque place to be. And I could really just, and I've spent a little bit of time there
I was just gonna
regardless.
ask, have you been there
Yeah.
before?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I've definitely been, maybe you've also been to like Annapolis. Have you ever been out there?
I don't think so. I mean, truthfully, I've only been to DC, like, this last time going was, like, my 3rd time going to DC because there's no other reason for me to go there other than
Yeah.
you, of course, and
Yeah. Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
like, field trips, I guess.
Yeah. Well, sometimes like field trips will stop out at Annapolis because like the Naval Academy is out there and it's really like
Mm,
a quick drive from DC. But um yeah, it's a very picturesque place, like just that eastern shore, very it's not like so much a beach town, it's more just like coastal, like nautical vibes, I guess you could say. But
okay.
um it's very quaint, and actually the bay itself is gonna play an important role in this case, and specifically the shoreline near Robin's home, or I should say her former home.
Mhm,
Um, I also wanna focus on something here in the top line because we talk on Creep Time a lot about how the dogs always know, and
mhm.
we love the dogs on Creep Time. Well, this case starts out in a very strange way because a body is discovered washed up on shore, but it's not a human body. It's the body of a dog, and that dog
Oh,
actually plays a very important part in what we know about this case today and what we could discover in the future. And we'll explore how that dog may have been used as a ploy in the disappearance of Robin Pope
mhm.
and potentially how her attachment to that dog played a role. And I have a sneaking suspicion that the two of us and the creepers are probably going to come to the same conclusion about this case. So, what I am like most intrigued about is unpacking with you how the hell someone could get away with this. But before I get ahead of myself, because I know once we get into the nitty-gritty of this, you and the creepers on the other side are gonna go off.
I was like, "Say no more."
Yeah, we're gonna get pissed off,
I was like,
so
"This is my 2nd cup of coffee. I'm
I
prepared
know, I was
to
just
do
saying
what must be done."
license to get pissed off. Let me just say, welcome back, creepers. If you guys are new here, we are so happy that you found us. I am Stu, and co-hosting with me is the wonderful Silas Dean, and this is gonna be I'm like, "Where
I'm
are
like, "You're
you?"
probably not looking at me right
No,
now.
I'm like, "Wait, I have to see you."
I was like
Did you
I'm like,
clutch your cups?
"The wonderful Silas Jane."
I know, I need a list of, like, adjectives. I need them to get more and more, like, sinister.
You said dazzling the other night, and I was like, "That needs to
Dazzling.
come back, the dazzling."
Dazzling, honey. But we're so happy you found us if you are new here. And we are a true crime podcast that covers mostly unsolved cases, but we do a handful of, your really true crime cases. We do paranormal, we do survival stories. So if you happen to listen to this episode and you like us, feel free to follow us or subscribe, whether you listen on Spotify or Apple, or if you listen on Amazon, wherever. And if you do want to see us, we are actually on video now. So you can check us out on Spotify. And also we've got our YouTube channel where if you want to look at these two mugs while we're telling the story, you are more than welcome to. And we also have sections you can comment on I think Spotify and Apple. You can comment or leave us reviews.
I think you could definitely leave like written reviews on Apple. On Spotify, I think that's comment exclusive.
Just comment exclusive, which
Yeah,
is
and also you should mention if they have Spotify Premium and want to come over, not only can they comment, but they can watch us ad free, which
yes.
is very limited time. I don't know how long
Yeah.
Spotify will do that, but you can watch all your podcasts ad free. I think you also get uninterrupted audiobooks, something of the
Oh,
sort.
oh, how nice. How
Yeah.
lovely.
No, I got to follow up with Millie on that, or we'll
Oh.
bleep that.
I know. I was going to say, well, that person too that we're going to bleep. I'm like, I just kind of want to drop her a line like, hey, maybe never get rid of the ad-free video because it's what a perk. It's so nice to not have to listen to ads
I
while
know.
you're.
It's so tough to get people to switch over, I
I
feel like,
know.
from Apple to Spotify, because I was talking with Jen about this and like how ingrained that system is in you of like, this is where I get my content, this is where I listen to my stuff. But that's a pretty big sell. Like
Yeah,
ad-free video podcasts and ad-free audiobooks,
I
and
know.
I think you get unlimited music listening.
Yeah. Well, and let me just say, if you really do like an ad-free experience, we do have a premium channel where we have other little episodes if you get through our catalog and you want to check those out. So, and you can
Yes,
become
on
a premium.
onlyfans.com
Yeah.
slash creeptime, you can find Silas and Stu.
And these competitive cups, honey. Oh my God. I cannot believe this is our last episode that's going to be released before we go out on tour.
I know,
It's
I
going to be.
know. Have no fear, because I know some people were
Ah,
nervous about it, but we did pre-record a number of episodes that we'll continue to release, including premium
yes.
episodes while we are
Yes.
out on the road. So have no fear. We are still going to be there for you on Fridays, but please
Yes.
come out and see us.
Somehow we were on top of it. We were so on top of it, y'all. And we'll have, yeah, regular episodes dropping, some premium content. And we're so excited. Some of you guys are going to come out and see us. I cannot, like, it gets more and more surreal, obviously, as the days tick by, but it's going to be so fun to see you guys in person.
I think we have like 9 days from
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
9 days.
Baby, February's a short month. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to launch into the case of Robin Pope. So Robin Pope was 51 years old at the time she would disappear. And to give you a little bit of a background on Robin, she had just recently survived breast cancer and she was really going through this like transformative moment in her life. And actually, I think I've got a picture of her she had recently survived and beaten cancer. I think it's on page 2. I would
Okay.
just say stick to like the first couple of pages. If you want to check out what she looks like. But
Yeah.
um, any first thoughts just looking at her?
I mean, none in particular just yet. She looks kind of just like she's blonde, looks to be about like maybe 40s or 50s. Very pretty, great smile. And I definitely see the pictures of her surviving breast cancer. It looks like she has a headscarf on, like maybe she
Yeah,
lost her hair
yeah, like
during treatment.
yep. But during this time, right around 2013, her hair had kind of grown back after the cancer. She was getting in really good shape. And I think she was just really relishing in her social life. Like she kind of had a new lease on life. And
Amazing.
she really she didn't want to accept anything less than she felt like she deserved now that she had been given a second chance. And Robin was kind of like you were picking up on a very outgoing and fun loving person. And you'll see in a lot of those pictures there, which creepers will have this up on Reddit. But Robin was sort of the life of the party. And she kept this up in tandem with what sounded like to me a pretty robust, work schedule. She apparently had her own fence company. She also worked as a dental hygienist, and she also had a family. She had 2 daughters. Their names were Priscilla and Rachel. And actually,
Oh,
Priscilla was from a previous marriage, and then Rachel was her daughter that she had with her husband, Wayne. And it would be her husband, Wayne, whom she had been married to for over 20 years, that would make a call in the early morning hours of March 2nd, 2013 to 911 that would really be the catalyst into this case. And let me just give you a little bit of a background on her and Wayne's
mhm.
marriage. So, like I said, they had been married for 20 years up until about a month before Robin goes missing, because that previous month they had decided to separate. And at this point, when everything goes down, I just want to be clear they're not living under the same roof anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Fully separated, just
fully
fully
separated.
separated, like out of the house.
Yes, like she is gone. Because
Gotcha.
it gets a little bit unclear, or at least it was to me when I was first researching, like when this call is made, where they are. So just know, and I'll make sure I kind of maintain clarity on that. But yes, at this point, they had separated fully. She's not living under the same roof.
Got it.
Um, and so on that 911 call, Wayne states that he is starting to get worried because his wife, Robin, is not home. And this is where it gets a little dicey. He's saying she's not home, and it's the home where they used to live together up until a month ago.
Got it.
So Robin had moved out. She was living in a condo nearby. And the only reason she was back at their old home that they used to live in together was because she had coordinated a time with Wayne when she could come back to the house without him being there so that she could get her mail and some other items of hers. So Wayne claims that he left the house to give her some space, but when he got back, she was missing, but her car was still there. Now, what's really important is at this time, their family dog named Bella, who I think I have a couple pictures of, she was still living at Wayne's house. And this was important because Robin's new condo building wouldn't allow dogs on the premises. And that's really the only reason the dog was still at Wayne's house. Because from everything I read, Robin was super attached to Bella. Like that dog was way more her dog than it ever was Wayne's. And it was pretty routine for her to like want to come over and see the dog.
Mm.
And I always feel for people that have to go through that, by the way. I mean, like, obviously, a custody battle with children is like a much heavier, deeper thing. But I guess within this first month of the breakup, it kind of stunk that Robin didn't have her dog to kind of like
I was
take
gonna
care
say,
of
I
her.
was like, I think the dog is much more emotionally tumultuous, to be
I
honest.
know, I know. I feel like
You
I
can
see
keep full
people.
custody of those kids. That's
I
fine.
yeah. I swear to God, I see people lose more sleep over like something happening during a breakup with the animals than
I've
anything
seen it
else.
happen so many times, but
I
even just with
know.
just like long-term relationships in LA, I've seen a number of friends who got a dog together, and then
Yeah.
they quite literally have to have like from their breakup, they're not even married. They have to have like a divorce like agreement about
I
like shared custody of the dog, and I get it.
yeah, I do
That's
too.
devastating.
I do too. They're
And
like,
also, this dog is huge.
well, I was gonna mention to you, it's a great freaking Dane.
It's
And
and it's like the size of her.
yes,
It's
yes, it's as
enormous.
my mom would say, that dog is the size of a horse. I mean, it
Yeah.
literally is like, and there's a picture, maybe I have it up there, but like where he's up on his hind legs, he's almost the same height as her.
That's what I just said.
Um,
Yeah, she's the same. They're the
oh yeah,
same size.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, same size. But and that will actually, I'm glad you called that out. It is important in terms of this case. So she really plays a role in the investigation, Bella, like I kind of teased in the top line, and also a role in the dynamic between Wayne and Robin. So that set up again. Wayne was supposedly going to be out of the house so she could do her thing. And then he claims that he was only going to be gone for a couple of hours, only to return and find his wife's car still in the driveway, but no wife and no Bella that was living with him at the time. And
mhm.
I just find this interesting. On the 911 call, he says, I want to report suspicious activity at my house. My wife was just here and now she's not here, and our dog is gone, but her car is still here and I can see the things in her car. So please, please come by. I don't know why it stuck out to me when I listened to it, like
Uh-huh.
suspicious activity. It was
Well,
just
so
kind
it's
of,
kind of presumptuous, I get. Well, I guess
yeah.
it depends how long he was waiting, but if the dog lives there and she was there and her car's still there, my mind was like, did she not just go out for a walk with the dog?
Well,
That's what I
okay.
that's
Well,
what I was
that's really
thinking.
interesting that that was your first thought because I think it'll, once I kind of break out the timestamp, you might have a different idea about that. But yeah, I
Okay.
mean, that would kind of make sense to me. But I think once I tell you what kind of time of day it was and the things that had happened leading
Mm,
up to that, you might be like, actually, she might not have gone on a walk.
okay,
But
that makes more sense. Or and also, I don't even know how long she was like gone before he called 911.
yeah, yeah. I think mostly just for me, I was like, suspicious activity is just like a weird thing to say about, like, if I were
Yeah.
had come to that, or if you had come to my house and, like, you were gonna get something and I would be like, "Oh my god, like, my friend was here and they're missing now." Like, it was just strange.
Well, I don't even know what suspicious activity means is the thing.
Exactly,
I'm
exactly.
like, because that usually that would mean that you're witnessing something suspicious happen, but it sounds like
Yeah,
all you've witnessed is an absence of someone and a dog.
exactly, exactly, and an absence of someone that, like, you weren't supposed to see in the
Oh,
first
sorry. I
place.
just almost knocked my entire computer
Oh.
over. It's fine.
Oh my god, you're fine, baby.
But I get what you're saying for sure.
Yeah. So that's when Queens and County, how regal, they decide to come by. And I'm familiar with Queens and County only because I've been up like into the mid-Atlantic a lot. So I feel like there's probably a lot of like Queens and County creepers that are listening. But it's a very large county. But when they arrive, they look into Robin's car and they do spot that her phone, her purse, her keys, and most importantly, Robin's medicine are in the car. I should say they're able to get into the car and actually take a look at it. Um,
Gotcha.
because remember that Robin had only recently survived breast cancer, and
Mhm.
this was a medicine that she had to take daily during her remission. I think it was like some sort of hormonal pill or something that sort of prevented the recurrence of the cancer cell growth, but it's definitely not something that she would have left behind if she was going to be going somewhere for a long time.
Right.
Um, and Wayne is questioned about the evening and breaks down his timeline to police. And there are some immediate, I'll call them oddities, and just in the way he recalls the evening. And I'm going to go into way more like of a specifically time-stamped version of the evening, according to him. But from what I read, the plan was that Robin had a job interview that evening. And I tried to find more information on like what the status of her career was at this point, because I know she had that fence company and she was a hygienist. Maybe she was picking up another side gig. I don't know.
Mm.
Um, but anyways, this interview was supposed to take place earlier that Friday evening. And from what I read, the interview was gonna take place at a local mall, so maybe it was, like, at a retail shop or something, but
Okay.
her plan was to go do that interview, and then after this interview, she was gonna go meet up with some friends for drinks at a bar, and then after that, she was going to go over to Wayne's house to pick up her mail and visit the dog Bella and grab whatever else she needed.
Mhm.
And then after that, she'd go back to her condo, which I think she was renting from her best friend Debbie, who you'll see on that, I think on the second page.
Oh, let me take a
Um,
look. Hold on.
I think it was Debbie or Debbie's daughter, but they had a condo that they were letting.
Unsolved. Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah, I see her.
yeah, and they were besties. Like this is her best friend. And she's also a very important character in this case. So that is the rough outline of the evening from Robin's point of view. But what's odd here, and that I want to call attention to, is that Wayne immediately tells police that at around he thinks 11:30 p.m. he had dozed off for the hour prior, like 10:30 leading up to 11:30.
He thinks
He
he dozed
thinks
off?
he thinks he dozed off.
I think a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna think a lot of things after this. And well, I know I keep saying we'll get into it, but Robin had been trying to get into the house prior to 11:30 when he supposedly like came to.
Mhm.
And Wayne says that he just like fell asleep. And then when he woke up, he realized he had all these messages from text messages from Robin saying, like, I'm here, where are you? And that's when he went outside and he sees Robin. And now Robin's asleep in her car. And he tells police, I think she was probably just waiting on me. And then she fell asleep in her car. So I tapped on the window and I told her that the dog was inside and it was unlocked and she could get whatever she needed to, and that I'd get out of her hair for a little bit, and I was gonna go to my parents' house, which was nearby, to hang out for a couple of hours, and whenever she was done, I'd come back home.
Okay.
Any immediate thoughts from that reveal of information?
Y Yes.
Okay.
Well, the timeline in terms of, like, time of day makes much more sense now as
Yeah.
I suppose, like, why it would be strange that not only is she gone, as is the dog. Also, do you know the date of when this happened? Does that say anything in the timeline?
The
Or, like,
di
time of year?
It was Friday, March 1st.
It'd be cold, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, the temperature, and maybe it's just because I'm looking out at a sheet of snow
I was
across
gonna
the
say that we're both
across the street.
frigid.
Yeah, I was like, "Maybe it's because my feet are shaking, I can't tell," but I also thought it was strange. Tell me if you thought this was weird that it's, like, 11:30 PM technically when he, like, goes and knocks on the window, and
Mhm.
then he says, "I'm gonna get out of your hair and go to my parents' place." These 2 are not young people, so I'm assuming his parents are quite elderly, and
Yes.
11:30 is quite late to go and get into their house and go hang with them. Maybe he wasn't hanging, he was just gonna, like, stay there, but
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know.
I will have a little bit more information on and I don't know what it really says, like the info that I was able to gather from it, but we should talk about it more because I did think that was weird. But Wayne's excuse at first made sense to me. Um, but I more so thought it was weird that she would fall asleep waiting for him. Like,
It's funny, I guess that part didn't stick out to me as, like, too far-fetched, I guess. It's definitely odd, but you ever been in that experience where, like, you try to text somebody and you're waiting on them to, like,
mhm,
wake up or be done or, like, see their damn phone, so you're like, "I'm just gonna stay stationary with my phone in a place
yeah.
like with my phone out, just waiting for them. And then you just get bored because you just stay still. So maybe it is
I'll
also late. I don't know.
It is like I'll tell you why it read strange to me is that I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is her estranged husband. And you can totally clock me on this if you don't agree, but I just find it's hard to believe that she's going to go sleep in the car, like, waiting for him when she's probably already kinda, like, pissed off at him to begin with, or, like, they're estranged, there's a tension there, she probably doesn't wanna see him, and, like, the whole point of this was so that, like, she could get there and he was supposed to be, like, out of the house and they would kinda coordinate this, like, pass off. So
Mhm.
I just thought it was weird that he would say, like, she obviously, she was just, like, waiting around, she fell asleep waiting for me. I was like, honestly, if that were me, I'd probably be like, A, I don't wanna see him, B, we're not on good terms, and I don't wanna sit around in the cold in my car, so I'm just gonna come back at another time,
The
is kinda what
timeline
I
again was
thought.
she went to an interview that night, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And then after that, did you say she went out for drinks or something?
Yes, she supposedly went out for, like, a drink and then was gonna go to Wayne's house.
Okay, that might be something to consider too. I don't know
Yeah.
how much she might have been drinking, but she's on medication. She's fresh off, some cancer treatment. She's not exactly a younger woman, and she just came back from a number of drinks. She might have just dozed off at the driveway for what
Yeah.
she thought would be like a 5 or 10 minute wait, waiting for him to like get up or see his phone, and she just like knocked out.
Yeah.
I'm playing devil's advocate because I'm curious to see if it's going to be relevant later on
Yeah.
in his
Well,
story.
I think it might be. I think it might be, and I had not considered the like, she had been drinking element of it, 'cause that could have been a thing. I mean, it also really was late at night, and she's not that
Speaking
she's
from
like
experience, as an older woman here, when I have a few glasses of
I was gonna
wine,
say
you won't see me up for more than 5 or 10.
I was gonna say, by the way, did you maybe watch the new, White Lotus?
Yeah, I did.
Oh my god, I was dying, and sorry, mom, if you listen to this, but the moment where Parker Posey's character falls asleep and then she goes, "Can you scratch my arm?" I was like, "That is my
Just
mother."
feels so good.
It
I
feels
well, there
so
were a
good.
number of consistencies where I was like like, they were mentioning schools and stuff, and I was like,
Oh, I
"Oh
know.
my god."
I was like, "This is" yeah, I'm like, "Please don't let this be the storyline for this family. This sucks."
I was like,
If
"What's
it's
going
going in
on
the
here?"
I know if it's going in the direction I think it is, which is scary. But yeah, so anyways, I'll get back to Robin
Mhm,
Pope, but, when police get there, not only do they look at Robin's car and see that all of her personal belongings are still inside, but Wayne actually allows them to come inside of his house, which surprised me at first. But police don't see any sort of a sign of a struggle. They do see Robin's mail on the table, one of the primary things that she had come there for. So they're thinking, okay, well, she probably didn't make it inside since we see that the mail is still here, but the dog is gone. So if we're to believe that Robin took the dog or was like visiting with the dog, she would have had to have come inside. It
mhm.
was cold and Bella lived inside that house. She was not like an outdoor dog or anything. And um, yeah, also just like we kind of mentioned earlier, a Great Dane, a massive dog to all of a sudden go missing. So let me just dive further into Wayne's timeline because it's going to get even more interesting. So after he apparently left, like after he had knocked on the window of Robin's car and said, "You can go inside," he says he did go over to his parents' house where I guess he kept a truck. And he said he needed it the next day, which I'm assuming since the next day is a Saturday, maybe he needed his truck for something recreational and like kept it there because there was like limited parking, or maybe it was his parents' truck. I'm not quite sure. But I tried to find what Wayne did for work, by the way, and I couldn't find, but assuming he needed it for that Saturday, maybe to load things, yard work.
Mhm.
But shortly after this, he went and grabbed a cup of coffee at a 7-Eleven. I guess to stay awake, unsure if Robin was still at the house, and considering it was, like, pretty late, I mean, maybe that isn't so crazy f to go and get a cup of coffee at a 7-Eleven that late at night. I mean, you and I
See,
probably
I was
would.
gonna say, I was like, definitely seems abnormal from the outside, but
Yeah.
God forbid if anyone looks at a timeline of us ever and
I
sees
know, it's
starting a pot of coffee at 2 in the morning.
I know,
They
I
might be
know.
like, "What's that about?" And I'm like, "It truly is just normal,
I
unfortunately."
I know. Also, there is something about a late night cup of coffee sometimes that just hits, but in terms of this case, yeah, I was thinking to myself, like, "Okay, well, maybe if she's still not answering and he's waiting around, he needs to stay awake to eventually make it back home." That kinda makes sense, but, uh, remember he left, he thinks, at around 11:30 or shortly
Right.
after this. The call to 911 wouldn't come in until 2:30 a.m. Hmm.
Ooh, it's quite a bit of
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Well, and he says he has a good excuse for what happened during this time period because, according to Wayne, he spent a short amount of time grabbing his truck and then he hit the 7-Eleven and then he returned home at around 12:30 a.m. But the reason he didn't make that 911 call until 2:30 a.m. was because he started to alert friends, and start kind of like a search for Robin himself. And he said that he had their 19-year-old daughter, Rachel, reach out to a bunch of Robin's friends during this time, including her best friend that I mentioned earlier and the woman that's in that picture, Debbie O'Malley. And I should also
Mhm.
just mention Debbie has been like, she is all over this case still. She puts a lot of pressure on it.
Really?
Yeah. So Debbie was the type of friend that Robin spoke to multiple times a day. Like, they texted all the
Really
time.
close.
Yeah, she was like, we would talk like 5 times a day normally. So Wayne decides to go over to Debbie's house in the middle of the night, and how Debbie describes it is that at around 1:15 or 1:30 in the morning, she remembers her daughter Jennifer coming up to the bedroom and saying, "Mommy, you've got to wake up. Wayne is downstairs and he's looking for Robin." And Debbie just described this as knowing that something terrible happened almost immediately. I think she was like certainly in the loop of how estranged and like tense the relationship between Robin and Wayne was. So for him to be there, she was like, oh God. Um, and she'd
Mhm.
also known him for years. So she actually had heard from Robin that day, right before she was about to go do that job interview. And Debbie said that she got a text at around 6:45 p.m. saying, "I'm doing this job interview and then maybe I'll meet up with you or like meet up with some of our friends and we can grab a drink." And Debbie says that was the last contact that she ever had with her. Um, I do also just want to mention that I found something on a website that Debbie runs where she really like provides a full breakdown of the evening from her point of view.
Mhm.
And she says, and this chills me, she said that shortly after 1:15, when Wayne was in her house, he started to tell her, "Debbie, we were in a good spot. We were going to try to go to counseling." And to me, and I think how Debbie was kind of what she was saying on the website is that sort of felt like he was like pleading a case to Debbie.
Yeah, it's just why I mention it.
Yeah. And then this is where it gets weird. He says, "Why don't you try to call her?" Now, do you know why that would be weird?
Why?
Because if his timeline is real, if he had already found Robin and Bella like gone, if he had returned home at 12:30 and saw her car, uh, he would have seen in the car that her phone was still in there. So why would he press Debbie to call?
If he did see it, I mean,
If
I'm
he did
assuming
see
yeah,
it.
I'm assuming he saw it, but yeah, or did he was it like an inflection thing where he was like, "Why don't you try to call her? Like, she doesn't wanna pick up for me maybe, so maybe she'll pick up for you." I'm playing hard devil's
No, no,
advocate.
no. I know, I know. I mean, but I think it's important in this case because, like I said in the top line, I mean, it feels so cut and dry, but clearly something went wrong here. Somebody played
Mhm.
devil's
Only because you
advocate.
mentioned how estranged they were, like, so much, I'm like, clearly their relationship sounds not good from the get-go,
Yeah,
so I can understand, like, if she is upset and she took off on her own accord is what he's feeding, maybe he's saying to Debbie, he's like, "She's not picking up for me." If this is all contingent on him, like, looking in the car and not seeing the phone in the
yeah,
dark.
yeah. And I guess in my mind, the only reason that I was like, "Come on, dude," is that if he had come home when he said he did and he looked in the
Mhm,
car, I mean, my first thing would be to try dialing my wife's number to see if the phone's in there. I mean, maybe he
mhm.
didn't think about that. Maybe he really didn't see the phone, but that's sort of what Debbie pointed out after she realized that he supposedly had gone home and had seen her stuff in the car. She was like, "Why was he having me try to call her if he
You
already
know,
knew?"
I think that's interesting that she brings attention to it because it almost feels like because we're going on into, like, one camp of thought with this, but
Hmm.
if she's bringing that up, I almost wonder if he had slipped up and mentioned something to her in the process of like explaining, where he was like, "You don't understand, like her medication was in the car and stuff." Because then that is the smoking gun, where he's like, "How about you call her?" But he has already clocked what's in the car, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Oh,
wonder if
totally.
he, oh, I'd be curious if like she had said anything about that or she remembered him saying anything about that.
I know. I wish.
Cause that's an important detail, actually.
And I know Debbie's done a lot of interviews. I just saw one snippet of her, and it was talking about, like, remembering Robin and, like, kind of her
Mhm.
memory, but I would love to hear the exact, like, from her lips, hot take of, like, how those 15 or 20-ish minutes were when he was in her home, and, like,
Right,
the
like, why she got
dynamics.
the sense that something was wrong.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a very chilling 20 minutes that she spent with him, but, after Wayne speaks with Debbie, this is when he decides he's gonna go back home and make the call to 911, and an investigation would officially begin. So that next day, Saturday, March 2nd, they put Robin into the National Crime Information Center database as a missing person, and friends and family start to help out as much as they can with an initial foot search around the neighborhood. And I should remind you and the creepers, in case you guys aren't looking at the pictures, but they live on like a very rocky waterfront property. You can kind of see a couple of pictures in there, but
Should I go down to the 3rd page?
yeah, sure, if you want to. Um, but you'll see, I mean, this is not like an easy search to do around kind of where their shoreline was.
Yeah, I was imagining a totally different neighborhood style, so this
Yeah,
makes things much more complicated and also much more sinister, for lack of a better phrase. For anything
right?
like this to go down by the water really freaks me out.
Yeah. Well, it's like rocky, it's very wet, it's very cold. Um, and yeah, it's a very sinister vibe. I felt the same way when I was looking at those pictures. And shockingly, and I say this because I feel like it's usually not this fast, but later that afternoon, an earth-shattering discovery is made just 2 docks down from Wayne's shore house. The body of Bella, the Great Dane, is discovered washed up at their neighbors.
Mhm.
Which, what an ominous sign that must have been, so fast, but they end up doing a dog autopsy, and
Really?
yeah,
I've
and
never read about that before in
yes,
any case we've covered. Wow.
yeah, yeah, I didn't actually know that they well, I guess we don't cover a ton of cases where the bodies of dogs wash up or, like, are
Right, or
such a
would be involved in the case in some way.
yeah, yeah, but they put her into an autopsy very quickly, and from an initial look at the dog, it didn't seem like anything super nefarious had happened, but the vet, does notice some significant bruises on the dog's feet, and I didn't know this, but Great Danes are not good swimmers. Um,
I was just gonna say, I was like, I wonder if the dog went in the water and tried to swim. I didn't know that.
yeah, which I guess it makes sense. I mean, it really is like this it's like a horse, but they're apparently known to be really bad swimmers, and to know that, like, definitely Robin would have known that, and Wayne certainly knew that.
Mhm.
Um, and Bella being found and no Robin, I mean, this is like the first sign of police that like, okay, something isn't right here. And just such a jarring image as well. I can imagine for investigators, time is ticking for them wondering, okay, when is Robin gonna wash up next? But
Right. Like, if the dog had slipped or went in and then she did something bold and, like, a panic and jumped after the dog or
yeah,
something, that's
yeah.
I'm assuming that's the story they're, like, loosely building.
Yes, yeah, but I just the I really can see it, like, cinematically, how chilling of an image that would be to, like, see the dog, and then it's like, okay, wondering where, because obviously her body's gonna be next.
Right.
So after Bella's body washes up, they bring in Wayne for a formal interview on March 3rd, and actually, after hearing a partial recording of this interrogation, they go in on Wayne as I guess one probably
Really?
yeah, yeah, like, in a way that kinda shocked me. I mean, I guess I probably would since, like, he's the one that was the last person that probably saw her, but
But it's pretty fast. I
it's
mean,
fast. It's Sunday.
I guess you can trust County in this case. Who knows?
Yeah, Queen Anne County, honey. So so, they say, "What do you think happened that would make the dog wash up on shore?" And
Mm,
he says
good question.
yeah, and he says, "Well, I guess she must have been playing with the dog down by the water." And they say, "At 11:30 o'clock at night?" And they say, "Would that have been normal for her?" And he says, maybe they both fell in, or maybe they went down there for a walk and then Bella wandered into the water. She's not a good swimmer. And then Robin went after her and something dreadful happened. So he's starting to like toss out these theories to
Yeah.
police. And then I think that that is what forced the officers to go full bad cop. This is where it got really like juicy. They say, we understand that you and your wife are separated and that there's some tension there. And then one of the
Mhm.
officers says straight up, he says, there's a lot of bad feelings when you feel like someone betrayed you, right? And Wayne's demeanor kind of shifts and he says, sure. And then the officer just straight up goes, "You killed your wife." And then Wayne goes, "No, I didn't." And then the officer says, "Are you sure?" And Wayne says, "I'm absolutely positive I didn't do that. I had nothing to do with my wife's death." Which it was just it's quite I should have had it on this episode to play. Maybe I can
That's
link
pretty
it.
bold. It's, like, not even really maybe it is a strategy, but, like, that's just kind of I don't know. I keep thinking about the Chris Watts, like, interrogation one where I'm like, that
Oh,
truly was the best way to, like, coax a confession out of somebody to sit down and be like, "So I think we both know what you did.
yeah.
So how about we start your story over?" I was like, "That's such a genius way to, like, go about
Yeah,
interrogating someone."
that
So he
really
just
is.
this cop just goes, "You killed your wife."
It literally straight like and it's like seconds pass, unless I was watching something that was like a bunch of clips, like they had taken out the time in between, but
Mhm.
he's like, "Yeah, it really sucks, like, when you have, problems in your marriage, doesn't it?" And he's like, "Mhm," and he goes, "You killed your wife." I was just like, "Oh, okay,
I mean,
let's
maybe that can
maybe
work
it."
if, like, it's so assured, you know what I mean? In some
Yeah,
weird way that it would almost, like, if it was someone who was guilty, they would be like, they know what
yeah,
happened here. Like, there's no point in trying to keep up the ruse or
yes,
something.
yes, but
I sounded like Miley Cyrus for a second. I was like, "There's no point in trying to keep up the
no point
ruse to
trying to
keep
keep
up
up the
the ruse."
ruse, the
Sorry, I'll try to
ruse.
avoid that vocal
No,
fry.
no. Um, did you catch the word betrayal, though? Because that is very important here.
Yeah, I was curious, like, if there's some backstory to that.
Okay, so the reason that Wayne and Robin got separated wasn't just because they had maybe, like, fallen out of love after being together for so many years. Robin had begun having an affair behind Wayne's back,
Okay.
and this is where it gets juicy. So, Wayne had discovered this after accidentally finding text messages on Robin's phone roughly a year prior, and
Oh,
for police, this is motive enough for them to start to pin on Wayne the idea that he, angrily killed his wife. And you'd think, damn, that's pretty harsh without any like super substantial evidence. But they did actually have a couple of incidents that happened that kind of backed up this theory. And I'm not sure who revealed this to police, like if it was Wayne eventually in the interrogation, or maybe this was something they found out from Debbie or maybe even their daughter. But it's confirmed that when Wayne found out about Robin's affair, he drove to the man's house that she was having the affair with a gun to confront him. Well, lo and behold, the only reason that Wayne ever even left was because that guy was actually having an affair on his fiance. He was engaged to another woman. So this was like such a hot mess. But that woman, I know, but that
straight
woman
people are exhausting. So
I know,
exhausting.
and I can say that because I am one. We are exhausting, honey. But yeah, when I read this, I was like, "Oh god." So, yeah, they were having multiple there were, 2 different affairs really happening here.
A mess, a
Um,
proper soap opera, honestly.
a proper soap opera, and, when he got there, that woman, his fiancée, was there, and she
Oh
started
god.
freaking out, screaming, and I didn't see that they pressed charges of any sort against Wayne, but apparently this incident is what was really, like, the nail in the coffin for Robin in terms of ending their marriage, because Wayne, at that point, was obviously starting to become violent, he was super jealous, super angry, and she didn't wanna stick around to see what would happen, so that's why she initially, um, found a way to live somewhere else and made arrangements with
Right.
Debbie and her daughter to live in their condo. Um, I want to mention that apparently prior to the affair going down, Wayne and Robin did have a really loving relationship, and Robin's daughter, Priscilla, actually said that their relationship started out really strong, and remember, Priscilla is her daughter from another marriage. Wayne is not
Right.
her father, but,
Did they have
um,
any children together? These 2?
yes, they had one daughter, Rachel.
Right, the other I was
The
gonna
other
ask,
daughter.
okay.
Yeah. But Priscilla had said that when her mom got together with Wayne, it started out really strong, and he was a wonderful father figure to her. And then it was revealed over time to her that Wayne, and I think as she grew up and was like out of the house and stuff, her mom revealed that he really wasn't like the spectacular guy that Priscilla thought he was. Her mom told her that he put her down a lot, like classic things like saying, "You don't look good in that," or like, "You're being too loud, you're being too much." Like she apparently if she would put something on, he'd say, like, "Take that off, you don't look pretty or you look fat." And her daughter started to notice, a lot of these were triggered during the time period where her mom was really feeling herself, like in her later 40s and then early 50s after she had
Like
survived.
post cancer, right?
Yes, yes, and she was getting in, like, really good shape, and he just started showing these signs of being super jealous, but to boot, and I think this is awful, but, he knew how much Robin loved Bella, the dog, like, she was so obsessed with that dog, and
Mhm.
knowing that Great Danes are not good swimmers, he had reportedly thrown Bella into the water before during arguments, like, to get back at her,
Oh,
which, hello, like,
that's insane.
textbook, like, manipulator, red flag, hell. I mean, that's awful.
Also,
But
I mean, it's the first step of any murderer, truly, like hurting animals
yeah,
before you hurt a person.
yes, yes, very good point, very good point. But obviously in the context of this case and Bella going missing, it's like, okay, like, we have some history here of using the dog as a tool.
Yeah, also, may I make mention as a
Yeah.
side note, real quick, for him putting her down? This man looks like, again, a soft shell crab. I don't understand these men that come out the gate swinging and be like, "You don't look pretty in that." I'm like, "You look like a piece of mashed potato in a burlap sack, bitch." Sorry,
Baby,
45.
I know that the straights are exhausting, but the highest tier are the older, crusty males, white
Yeah,
males.
telling women they don't look pretty, and I'm
I
like,
know.
"Sir, you literally look like a soft baked potato with sour cream on it." It's so crazy. It's
Oh
so
my
crazy. The
god. I
gall is
know, I
crazy.
know, I know, and
I'll let you continue.
she looks so good for I mean, obviously, I mean, she was in fantastic shape and
Yeah,
very
and
pretty and
I'm not that I'm trying to, like, make excuses for infidelity or anything, and
oh
I think
god, no.
if you want to leave, you should leave in any
Yeah.
case scenario, but he also sounds like a monster, and he sounds
Yes.
controlling to
Yes,
me.
super controlling, super controlling. So police now with a little bit more context about the relationship struggles after their initial investigation, they want to bring Wayne back in for more questioning. And this is after they've discovered the dog. Just as a reminder, because a lot more information comes out from the vet, but they've now further examined Bella, and the vet concludes that the dog died ultimately of hypothermia, but they also take another look at those bruises, and the vet says, "You know what? I think there might have been, like, a sign of a struggle here. Either Bella was hit by a lot of things in the water, like in the rocky waters,
Yeah.
or something else may have happened." So when Wayne comes back in, maybe take a closer look at Wayne physically if you can. And when Wayne is brought back in, they notice scratch marks on him and bruising. And I don't know like how they got him to do this, but I do have a picture of it. Like it did happen. Somehow they do get him to like take off his shirt or pull it up, but there's a marking on his rib that is really intense the
Oh,
second
is that
time.
what that is?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
So I again I tried to look when I was researching this how they got him to show that or like make a case or how it even came up in conversation, but
Mhm.
I didn't see how they did that. But that is his rib. He definitely had this huge marking. Um,
Yeah, bold of him to lift up that shirt.
oh
Quite
God,
bold.
you're cracking me up.
So
Uh,
no, no, I'm sorry. I'm on one
no,
because this man just
no,
already
it's so
pisses me
true.
off.
Oh God, I know. I know. Roast him. Roast him. But what we do know is that Wayne tells police, he says, "Oh no, 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 these scratches and these bruises, and especially this one on my rib, it's just from when the neighbors first called me over after they found Bella. I went and was like leaning over the pier where they found her, like the dock to try to get the
Give me
body
a
up."
break and a cigarette,
I
please,
know. I know.
because
I
I
mean,
can't deal with it.
well,
The
and
storytelling, like,
also, tell creepers what that I mean, it's like a laceration, like, it's not just like a little bruise, it's
from someone who bruises easily, from, like, literally just walking into a wall, this is a
mhm,
pretty sizable injury, it looks like, and
yeah,
especially on his rib, I guess? Is that
yes,
where this is?
yeah, so it's like what he claimed happens, he's, like, laying over their, like, wooden pier, dock, or whatever, like, trying to yank the dog's body up, and, like, that's why it got so intensely bruised and cut up. Um,
Okay.
Also, not to, like, roast him, but to keep roasting him, he also just doesn't strike me as the type to really, like, sink his teeth into, like, trying to get the dog out of the water and, like, be the savior here. I'm just
Well, the
gonna throw
second
that out
you
there.
shared, like, some confirmation about that prior incident, allegedly where he had thrown Bella into the water,
Yeah.
I do not believe that this man, once Bella was found or washed up, would go to any physical length to get her out of the water.
Right, and for that exact reason, police go to the neighbors and they say, "Can you tell us can you recount kinda like the moment that Wayne came over?" Uh, And they basically say, we don't recall him leaning over into the water at all. In fact, one of the only
Mhm.
things we really recall is that when he came over, his reaction to Bella's body was, quote, lackluster. So, not looking good. And at this point, which I think is probably about a week or two after the initial investigation, um, after Robin had gone missing, Queen Anne County Police decide that they're going to tap Maryland State Police for extra assistance.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
And once the state does come in to help, Wayne pretty much goes off the grid. He goes missing from any of the search efforts that are on foot. And I guess maybe at this point he had hired attorneys that kind of said, like stay out of the fray until something else comes out about this. Or I even thought I was like, maybe the resentment was just really starting to kick in for him. I mean, it really had only been a month since they officially separated. And
I didn't realize it was that recent.
yes, yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. And at this point, he knew that police knew about the infidelity. So maybe he was just like really starting to get pissed off at Robin. Didn't care about finding her anymore, didn't want to help with the search, even if it was just like outside of like if he was guilty or not. I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, but his daughters, Rachel and Priscilla, which Priscilla, by the way, I should mention, Rachel lived locally. Priscilla lived out in California and had actually at this point obviously had flown in when her mom went missing, and she was really helping out with the searches. But she mentioned, she's like, like both of us kind of looked at each other dumbfounded and we're like, Dad, like it doesn't matter at this point. Mom is like potentially dead and you're not going to help us with the search. So they're also
Mhm.
starting to look at their dad like, "Are you who we think you are?" And
Oh, that's so devastating,
I know.
especially for I mean, his biological daughter, I guess, who have known him all her life. The thought of, like, having to rewire your brain to see your parent as a suspicious character is so difficult to imagine.
Yeah, and also that he had tapped Rachel the night that Robin had gone missing, saying like, "Rachel, you need to help me. You need to call mom's friends. You need to find out, like, kinda get a search started." So now he's kinda like changing his tune. So, Rachel at this point had also been talking to police about the absurdity of her mom taking Bella out that late. She could only think that maybe she had gone into the house and then Bella had gotten loose maybe and like run out into the water because
Mhm.
Rachel says to them, she's like, "This does not add up. My mom would A, not walk down there that late, and B,
Mhm.
would not go that close to the water. She hardly ever went that close to the water with Bella because she just knew she wasn't a good swimmer. She was always really cautious about that. And the other thing that her daughter notes is that I kind of when I read this, I was like, but currents can be really strong. But she says, even if something did happen, like God forbid, the dog went in there and like couldn't swim, and then Robin has to, like, leave Bella behind or something. She says, "My mom was in phenomenal shape, like, she was a gym rat. There is no way that because the
Mhm.
water there isn't that deep," she was like, "My mom would have easily swum back in." So, it's just not making any sense for Rachel, and she's just wondering, why would the dog's body come up and not my mom's? So
Must have been freezing cold water too, I
yes,
mean,
like yeah, for sure. I should have looked up,
yeah.
like, what the temperature would have been, but yeah, I mean, it would have been like
I mean, just from that area and the time of year, I mean,
yeah.
just going in, like, that's shocking on your
Mhm,
body.
mhm, and I mean, the dog died of hypothermia, so, must have
Right,
been
ugh,
like
which is so sad 'cause I mean, it must have been quite a long time of the dog, like, struggling in the water, trying to stay afloat or dodge the paddle.
I know. Oh god. Now, we're kind of reaching the same dead end in the first week, but on March 10th, we would get our next groundbreaking moment. So, right near the exact area where Bella was found, a woman's blouse washes up onto the shore, and the family believes it's Robin's. They recognize it. And the
Mm,
weird thing is, there's nothing on the blouse to really indicate a struggle, like blood or any severe damage to it. But again, it's just like another ominous sign, and it makes Maryland State Police say, okay, clearly we need to keep our focus on the water here. And conveniently at this time, Owen starts to switch up his story a little bit. He now reveals to police that on March 1st, he was actually out having dinner with friends of his in Annapolis, which Annapolis is actually even closer to DC than this area where Stevensville is, but,
mm.
he said that when he was done having dinner with those friends in Annapolis, he then had planned to bring his daughter Rachel dinner at her work, which from what I read, Rachel worked in the mall, and his story of getting dinner with friends was actually corroborated. He did, in fact, have dinner with those friends at around
Mhm.
5:30 p.m. that night. Um, However, police talked to Rachel about the whole, like, her dad bringing her dinner thing, and she says, "No, my dad never brought me dinner to work, but also my dad never brought me dinner to work in general. Like, that would have been very weird. He never did stuff like that." And here's where things get dicey because Robin, remember how she had that, like, job interview?
Yeah.
So, from what I read, I think Robin was interviewing either at a store at that mall where her daughter worked, or it would have
Mhm.
been a store that was very close by. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this would have been a very convenient story for Wayne if for some reason it was discovered either like on footage or something or like a witness statement that he was near the mall that night and he could just say like, "Oh, I was bringing my daughter dinner." Um
Yeah, I was wondering why that was, like, a part of the story, I guess.
yeah, and
Like,
I
near
didn't.
them all to, like, watch Robin, maybe?
Maybe to watch Robin, yeah, is kinda what I was thinking, like
Mhm.
stalker vibes a little bit, and I didn't see enough to back this up, so, like, take it with a grain of salt, but I did see reports that perhaps after this interview, Robin had gotten drinks actually with the manager of that store, who was believed to have been male, and could this have possibly tripped Wayne into some sort of, like, a jealousy fit? Um, I don't know if she had been.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't
Yeah,
even thinking about that because I was trying to think, I was like, "What is the motive behind watching unless you've got, like, a plan of action that requires you to watch her?"
right, right.
But I wasn't even thinking about him sort of stalking her
Well.
in terms of watching, like, whether or not she's with a man at any point in that
Mhm.
night.
Well, and I think it's weird because I don't know if it was ever revealed to Wayne that she was gonna get drinks with the manager,
Mm,
but he did know that she had a job interview that night and that she would be coming by later to pick up the mail. Like, she had said that that's what her plan of action was to go do this interview and then come over to the house later.
mhm.
I just don't know if he knew about, like, the whole, like, drinks thing and the manager of it all, but I just thought that there was an interesting nugget I wanted to share because nothing that I saw ever came out where he was, like, caught on CCTV footage or something at the mall, but I just think he kinda, like, shot himself in the foot by making up that lie about the dinner. I was like, "Why would you do that?" But
I don't know. Yeah, that's
I
strange.
think it was him thinking ahead, like, "Okay, what if they find me at the mall where Robin was doing her interview?"
Yeah, and to say it is also possible he never went to the mall, like, maybe
Yeah.
this was, like, an intent he just, like, spat out while he was, I don't know, retelling his story, but it doesn't really make sense for, like, A, what he did, but B, for his character.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Strange.
Very strange. But what we do know later is that based on cell phone records, Robin was definitely in touch with Wayne that night, and she had definitely been in the Annapolis area and had left to go towards Wayne's house after the interview because a little bit after 9:30 p.m., her Easy Pass reader in her car shows that she was headed back towards Stevensville. And her cell phone records show that at around 10 o'clock that night, she texted Wayne saying that she was going to stop by soon. And then there was also a call logged at around 10:12 p.m. between Robin and Wayne. And then there was another call at 10:30 p.m. when we think she probably would have arrived at Wayne's house,
Okay.
just based on when she had left that sort of like Annapolis surrounding area. So then there's this like series of texts that comes in right at around 11 o'clock when supposedly Wayne would have been like dozed off sleeping. And these texts say, "Wayne, I would like to get my mail." And apparently the text sent like three times in a row, which the cell phone company came out later and said, "We think this was just like a glitch because each one of the texts went like within 1 second of each other," which I think that happens sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, like, a service thing, if, like, it
Yeah.
doesn't go through and then it just duplicates, sends something weird
Yes.
like that.
Yeah, but I think at first when they saw it, they were like, "Okay, what is like, why is she freaking out?" But that the cell phone
Mhm.
company came out and said, "No, this is probably just a glitch." But then she ends up sending another message a couple minutes later that says, "Wayne, question mark, question mark. I'm here and I want to get my mail." And according to what I saw, Wayne did not ever respond to her texts. So I guess this was when she would have ended up falling asleep, according to his story. And then he comes to and realizes that she's outside waiting for him. Now, upon further investigation, that initial timeline, according to Wayne, that I broke out, he, comes outside, he goes to his parents, goes to the
Mhm.
7-Eleven, somehow came back home. But here's where the cracks become craters because Wayne's parents are questioned by police and they say, "We don't recall Wayne coming over," which, like, Yikes, the parents aren't even backing him up, but Wayne says, "Oh, no, 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 I never went inside, I didn't wanna wake them up," which it's funny because I mean, you picked up on this very early on, and it could
Mhm.
make sense, but he says, "No, I mean, they're old, I didn't wanna wake them up, so I got my truck." I've got, like, a method to get my truck without having to go inside, and then, surveillance camera footage shows Wayne, which I have a picture of, coming out of that 7-Eleven,
Did see that, yes.
yeah, at around 1:07 in the morning. But according to Debbie, the best friend, Wayne came over at around 1:15 saying that he had already been home. But kinda like I already mentioned, in his original version of the story he told police, he went to 7-Eleven first before he ever went back home, where he
Right.
supposedly finds Robin and Bella gone.
Okay.
So, something ain't adding up here. Um, do you
There's
yeah,
well, there's just I mean, it's either confusion on her part in the timeline or there's something wonky in his story.
right, right. Well, and I think we should just take a look at, like, the cold hard facts because we know that the very last text that was ever received by Robin or Wayne to one another was Robin texting Wayne at 11. Then we have Wayne caught on camera at 1:07, and then 2:30 rolls around, and we have that 911 call.
Mhm.
So considering those facts, we've got at least a couple of hours on the front end from 11 to, like, 1-ish when he's captured on the 7-Eleven footage, and then we've got, like, another hour-ish between 1:15 when he went to Debbie's, where it sounds like he only spent about 15 or 20 minutes. So, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, say that the stay was even longer and maybe he leaves at, like, 1:45.
Mhm.
He then waits until 2:30 to call 911. I mean, I'm just putting it I'm putting it together that I feel like those were 2 very nice chunks of time to, like, go ahead and do what you're gonna go do, and then another hour on the back end of time to either, like, calm yourself down before you're gonna call 911 or, like, patch things up, but I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about it?
It's interesting because I'd be curious if there are any investigators who do listen to us, God, um, what they would make of this because I'm
Yeah.
in my mind, I've always thought of people who sort of cover their tracks where they scrub all evidence out of possibility before they actually go and start like planting themselves in different places to build out their alibi of like, look, I went to go here to like talk to her, and then I called Rachel to get her to call a bunch of different people. And that all to me is like setup of like, look, I was doing my part for my missing estranged
Mhm.
wife. But it from the timeline you're suggesting, it almost sounds like in the middle of like maybe his cover up, his cleaning, his setup, he had actually stopped over at Debbie's, which seems a little counterintuitive, not to say it's impossible, but it did stick out to me where I was like, that throws the scent off a little bit for me in a strange way, but I'd be curious what an investigator would make of that.
Yeah, so you're saying, like, had he kind of premeditated how the night was gonna go, it was, like, a mistake for him to go to Debbie's when he did?
Not quite. I mean, that's why for me, it's throwing the scent off in a strange way because I'm like, I would almost assume that he would take as much time as he needed, whether it's 1, 2, 3 hours to like, if he is
Mhm.
involved in this in some sinister way and it's foul play to get rid of Bella, get rid of Robin, clean his home, clean the car, do whatever he's going to do to make sure that he covers his tracks in terms of there's no sign of struggle, there's no sign of blood, there's no sign of
Mhm.
whatever there might be. And then, and only then, would he start calling Rachel and leaving those phone records. Then would he go to Debbie's? But it sounds like in the middle of that, he just went to Debbie's for like maybe 20 minutes. And then there's a big chunk of time that passes where he's doing something back at his home.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then he calls 911.
yeah. I mean, I couldn't think of what he could have been doing for those, like, hour 45 minutes other
The
than
only way we could piece it together is like, would just be phone records, I think, if
yeah.
he's like repeatedly calling people. That's the only thing I could imagine.
Yeah. I was shocked also if we're thinking about it in terms of him, like, kind of premeditating the night. I'm
Mhm.
shocked that he didn't get his like, make it known that his parents would see him to, like, corroborate him being over there. But I guess it didn't really matter in this case, but I feel like that would be something that I would make sure that my parents saw me to, like, back me up.
Yeah, that's another, like, strange thing that also throws the scent off because I would assume, like, he would have, like, planted that as well,
Mhm.
unless maybe it's beneficial for him to say, "No, no, 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 I have a way to get my truck, so there's really no way to document whether or not he was there," because the parents can't say yes or no because they're
Mhm.
like, "We were asleep, and there's no security footage," so it's just kind of a gap of time where he's like, "It's my word or there's no proof."
Yeah. It's very convenient how,
Mhm.
like, kind of gray a lot of the night is for him, but I mean, there are ways he can like skirt out of it. It's just very frustrating. Um,
Mm.
but we're gonna have our final kind of watershed moment on March 23rd when a man is out fishing with his daughter and they're standing out on a pier and he spots a body floating towards the shore.
Oh no.
And yes, this is the severely decomposed body of Robin Pope. And she is pulled ashore and immediately taken to the medical examiner. And when she's examined, there are no stab wounds, there are no bullet wounds, there is no trauma to the head or the body, just a ton of water that is logged in her lungs, which of course would indicate that her respiratory system was still functioning, aka she was probably still alive when she went into that water.
Mhm.
She was found in a pair of jeans, a T-shirt that they believe was, it was kinda, like, shredded up when it was on her body, which they think was probably just from the rocky waters. But the weirdest thing that stuck out to me was that when they found the body, apparently her high heels were still on. Um
Huh.
I cannot believe they stayed on the entire time. Um, the other odd thing was that when they found the body, she was almost a mile down from where they found Bella, which
Huh.
was just kinda odd that she would be found so far away had they gone into the water at the same time. So, of course, investigators are very suspicious as to why it would have taken this long for her body to surface. But here's where you're really gonna get pissed off, and I need you and the creepers to, like, take a deep breath. I wish I had, like, a magic mind or something to make sure I was calm. But as her next of kin, Robin's body was released to Wayne, and because there was no physical evidence pointing to Wayne potentially being a murderer, this case reaches, in my opinion, one of the most devastating dead ends we've ever seen because Wayne immediately has her body cremated.
I knew it. I knew it.
Immediately, like within a day or 2
Whoa.
of her body being found. And I also read that Wayne was named a person of interest, but it wouldn't be until the following year, and he was brought in for more questioning, and actually he was even brought in for a polygraph, but at the last second, he refused to come in for the polygraph. Um,
Mhm.
so it's just an incredibly frustrating situation to me that A, that was even possible for him to, like, go and do that, but that we'll never be like, never get another shot at having a further examination of Robin's body because and this is a nugget specifically I wanted to highlight for you, is that the chief medical examiner on her case, his name was Doctor William Rodriguez. He was actually the chief medical examiner that was instrumental in the Casey Anthony case.
Really?
Yes. So he was like
Oh,
a very brilliant mind from what I read. And he had tried to vocalize that he had concerns and he wanted to study the body further. So it was just such a shame that they were able, I guess legally, their hands were tied. They had to hand over the body to Wayne.
yeah.
There was no
But
way
he
they could
was the
stop
one
it.
who conducted the initial autopsy?
Mhm. Mhm.
Huh. That's
Um
interesting that
yeah.
he's sort of like criticizing his own work in that sense.
Yeah, well, I feel like he was just like, I'm sure he's a busy guy, but I feel like maybe he just needed more time, and I don't know if he had a lot that he had to do, I don't really know how that works, like, how much time you have with
I
a
would
body.
hope whoever's doing my autopsy doesn't have a lot to do other than do my autopsy.
Yeah, I know, but I guess I've never really thought about that. I'm like, I get how long do you I guess the real question is, like, how long are they legally allowed to keep the body before giving it to the person that's next of kin?
I could be wrong about this. Well, I mean, not in terms of like length or time that they're allowed to keep the body, but I think most autopsies, from what you can examine on the actual body, can and are often completed within like a 1 day period, I
Yeah.
think. And then obviously there's additional testing that has to be done on certain bone fragments, or maybe they have to send out organs or samples to like specialists or things like that. But as long as you do your due diligence and collect all of the blood samples, tissue that you need,
Mhm.
you should be okay in the aftermath. That might take several weeks or maybe even months sometimes if you're looking
Mhm.
at like bone, I suppose. But
Mhm.
all of the initial examination of the body, I believe, can be done in 24 hours. So this isn't really a shot at like his time constraint, it's a shot at his work.
Mm, and that's that on that.
Well, truth be told, I mean
Yeah.
that's why we need like second opinions from other
Yeah.
examiners where they
That's
say this
true.
examiner didn't do their due diligence.
Yeah. Well, with all of this, I think that all that's really left to do is just to discuss the theories, and I'm sure we both feel pretty similar about this, but I'm eager to get your thoughts on some of the other theories I have to toss out because there are some folks that believe Wayne is not behind this. There's a
Mhm.
group that really feels like maybe she took the dog down there, like you said at the beginning, for a walk, and then once Bella accidentally went into the water, like maybe they were on the dock or something, and then the dog jumped in, and she tried to save Bella, and maybe in those cold March waters, like she could have potentially died, trying to, since it was so dark outside, like maybe didn't initially see how to get back to the pier and then died
Mhm.
of hypothermia. I guess that's possible. Um, but if we do, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I was like, this might surprise you, but because it seems like there's limited evidence of any sort of struggle or injury on her
Mhm.
body, and the same thing applies to Bella, I am sort of in a bit of a strange gray area in a camp where I am almost wondering if this is an Occam's razor
Yeah.
situation, which I think is maybe not at all where I expected to end up,
Mhm.
actually,
Mhm.
because I had so much contention for control and the sort of toxic relationship, which I believe they did have. But I mean, if we have to believe what that examiner said, that there's no further injury on her body other than to show that she had water in her lungs, which is suggestive of a drowning in
Mhm.
most cases.
Mhm.
Maybe that is what happened.
I mean, it's a possibility. I feel like that's really is it is possible. I mean, and that's why this case really has been at such a dead end, I think, for the last like over the last decade. But I think also we can take another look at Wayne and just consider how it might have played out that evening with the dog because I kind of wondered in the first scenario I want to toss out is like if he used Bella as a tool again. And could he have
Mhm.
possibly tossed Bella out into the water during like an altercation with Robin? And that
Mhm.
maybe that started inside even and then eventually made its way outside, like where he was like, I'm gonna, take your dog and toss it in the water. And then did Robin go in to save her and something terrible happened to her by accident? Or could he have drowned Robin? This is something interesting I read. Drown Robin first and then
Mhm.
toss Bella in afterwards, knowing that she wouldn't survive.
Yeah. I mean, I can see both actually. And the bruises on the dog's feet
Mhm.
also to me, I immediately thought I was like, it has to be the dog violently trying to like stay afloat and like maybe hitting rocks if it's like getting close to the shore, and then eventually does die from not drowning but hypothermia,
Yeah.
which is interesting. I think the clue here that is the most interesting is that if we're to believe his story, that he was with her because he said he was with her and allowed her to go into the house before he left to go to his parents, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Robin.
Mhm.
Her phone is left in her car. And it could be different. Everybody is different on this. Most people do take their phones with them everywhere they go,
Yeah,
no
that's really
matter which
interesting.
space they enter. So I actually don't think the idea of some sort of a fight that breaks out could be off the table where he then uses Bella, the dog, as leverage to grab the dog and do what he did before, throw the dog in the water. And knowing that Robin is so attached to the dog, of course she will. It's like a child. She'll go in and try to save the dog. And then maybe he didn't even anticipate that this would end up in Robin's death.
Yeah. I that is a really chilling theory to me. I don't know why. Like the
Like an
idea that
almost an
an acc
accidental murder.
an accidental
Not an
murder.
accidental, but you know
Yeah.
what I mean. What I'm trying to
Yes.
say. I
Yeah.
guess would that be second degree or no?
Oh god, baby. Here we go. Manslaughter, second
I don't.
degree.
I
There
don't
is
remember if
no
creepers
such
explain.
thing as third degree.
Yes, correct. But there is a difference
Yeah.
between second degree and manslaughter.
Yeah, yeah,
There is
yeah.
a difference between those two. So
Yeah.
I like an unanticipated murder of his estranged wife by throwing the dog in where maybe he had clear intent to kill the dog, sort of to
Mhm.
get back at her, but did not anticipate Robin would jump in after that dog. And then in the darkness, in the
Yeah.
shock of the cold, maybe she had been drinking a little bit. She just could never get herself out of the water.
Mhm.
And he didn't do anything to stop it. And
Yeah.
then maybe from there, he spent the next several hours plotting how he was going to build his story.
God, that would be a really interesting case, like, if he ever did get somehow he got charges were pressed against him because I don't think in that case, it would be considered manslaughter because he didn't like, if we're to believe that it was an accident, like, he did throw the dog in, but had no idea that she was gonna go in after and die.
Mhm.
because manslaughter is like, you hit somebody with a car and you
Well, it's
kill them,
vehicular manslaughter.
but it's manslaughter, right?
I think so, but I think manslaughter can be applicable to stuff that doesn't even happen in a car. Like,
Yeah, no, it definitely can. But in this
it's
case, I
like
don't
the
think it would be.
unintentional ramification of something that you set up, an action that you did that resulted in somebody else's death.
But think about, like, it could be argued that he didn't set that up because he never forced her to go into the water after the dog.
Well, then it would come down to a conversation around intent, so they would ask, "What was your intention of throwing the dog in the water?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's
And,
that's where it would get so dicey.
I mean, the intent is either to I guess, yeah, that would be difficult to maybe argue, like, is the intention to entice her to jump into the water, or is the intention to cause her agony? But
Yeah.
regardless, I suppose the ramification of the outcome is that she did in fact jump in the water as a result of what you did,
Mhm.
and then she died,
Yeah, and then
if that's
here's
what
the other
happened.
thing, if I'm playing Nancy Grace, I'd be like, "Were your clothes wet when police came to talk to you?" "No, so you weren't trying to save her." Like, it's the other thing.
Oh, yeah, I wonder if that also, like because whether or not you can argue the intent of, like, how he got her into the water, once she was in the water, I think to watch somebody isn't that a thing? Like, to watch somebody drown? Or well, maybe there's a way to argue that away as well, like, if to watch somebody who's in peril and they're going to die and you're, like, a bystander and don't
Mhm.
save them, the way you can get off from that, I think, is if you are aware and it's unambiguous that it would cause you potential harm or death in trying to save the person.
Mm. Yeah.
So, I wonder I don't know, I wonder how that went, but I do think I mean, just considering if that examiner did his due diligence and he's like, "I really did not see much on that body other than, like, a drowning,"
Mhm.
then my assumption is that she did go into the water either intentionally or accidentally, and it doesn't sound like accidentally was likely.
Yeah. There's just and I'm almost at the end here. There is one other very odd little nugget of information. I just feel like it would be weird if I didn't mention it. And it
Mhm.
might just be a super odd coincidence, but Priscilla, her daughter from her first marriage,
Right.
revealed that her dad, Dean, who also apparently still lived in that area, he also died in the Chesapeake Bay only a couple months prior, and they thought that it was an accident. But looking back on it, Priscilla
That's
has
so
thought to
devastating for
herself,
Priscilla, my
I
god.
know, I know, and she has thought to herself, "I know that my dad had been trying to contact mom, at around that time, like, saying that he hoped that they could get back together someday." And it's a very loose end to try to tie to any of this, but isn't that the weirdest coincidence?
Mhm. Did they find anything I mean, I'm not sure if she ever mentioned this, if they found anything suspicious in his death, like how he went in the water?
I don't think so. I think he just his death was ruled as a drowning, an accidental drowning.
Huh. Yeah,
Um,
I'd be curious about the circumstances of, like, how they think he went into the water, whether or not there's a
yeah,
tie there, but the timing of it is very, very interesting, and maybe, truth be told, that could have given Wayne the idea of
yeah,
what he was gonna do, if
yeah.
it
Oh,
was
that's
more
yeah.
premeditated than we thought.
Yeah, even if he had nothing to do with Dean's death, I mean, it could have however that had come to be, he might have used that. That's a really good point, actually. He might have used that as, I hate to say inspiration,
But
but for
really,
lack
I
of a
mean,
better
that's
term, yeah,
and it sounds like I mean, if he had thrown the dog in the water before, it sounds like he had almost attempted this scheme at some
mhm,
point.
mhm, but
I wonder what happened when he threw the dog in the water before, if when that really happened, or if that really happened.
yeah,
How
I
that
don't know.
somebody if the dog's not a good swimmer, somebody must have gone in to get the dog, and I'm assuming it was Robin.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was in the daytime, and I'm sure it
Yeah.
was, um, she was close by. Maybe it was warmer weather too. I don't know. That would be interesting to get, like, more of a recap on the first time it happened.
I'm
Um
also thinking about that. I mean, of course, she would be decomposed, but I'm interested. Some forensic creepers, if you're listening, since it is March and those waters are very, very cold, like, the idea of her being severely decomposed after something like 20 days in those waters,
Mhm,
I
23
would've
days.
yeah, I would've thought she would've been more preserved. That's interesting as well.
Yeah. I feel like I need more of, like, a deep dive 'cause now I feel like I've covered a couple of cases where the body comes up and we both are like, "How is that possible?" I need to, like, study decomposition because what was the case? I think it was, like, Judy Smith or something, but her body was found super decomposed or maybe opposite, like, wasn't decomposed And
Right, and she was in the summer in the woods, and I
yes.
was like, she would have been gone within weeks, like,
Yeah.
physically, like, her body might have been eaten alive by insects within
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah, we definitely need forensic creepers weigh in on that because I'm actually very curious. I feel like there's a couple cases now where it doesn't add up in the way we think it will. But to kind of put an end to this, what remains a constant is that this case remains in large part just shut down. And to me, it's such an egregious display of injustice. And I cannot believe, even if he was her next of kin, that her, daughters weren't protected in some capacity and like didn't have a say in stopping him from cremating the body, or that honestly, and like I kind of feel like there should be laws passed that if you're in some sort of like a separation agreement or a divorce with the person, that
Mhm.
maybe they should be prevented from having a right over your body. But um, I'll just end us here and say that we should all keep talking about this Robin Pope case, and share it with your friends. You should check out the website that Debbie runs. It's called rememberingrobinpope.com because
Mm.
if Wayne is behind this, he obviously should have never gotten away with it. I mean, this is just like too clear to me personally, but, I'll also try to include there's, like, a lot of tip lines that Debbie has on her website, but, yeah, I encourage more people to share this story with, other true crime fans and friends because I truly have only seen it covered on, like, 2 other podcasts, and I just think it's the type of story that if we put some pressure behind it, hopefully Robin could see and her 2 daughters, Rachel and Priscilla could see some justice someday.
Yeah, just an
Um
explanation of what really happened
yeah.
that night.
Yeah, I think they deserve it.
How did you find this case?
I'm trying to think. You know what? I was looking at a case that was local to DC.
Uh,
It was a different woman though. Her name was like Dana or something. And this case popped up as like a suggested like to this area. I was just looking in the DMV kind of area, and it
no,
came
it's a
up.
super super interesting one. I'm surprised I hadn't heard of it before, and
Yeah.
it's pretty mysterious because I feel like a case like this I almost wasn't expecting for a body to return.
Mhm.
And it's left me in just as much of, like, a gray area as I think when I started, which is strange.
Yeah. Do you think that he was holding onto the body and then put it out there, or do you think truly just like conveniently it showed up later?
I don't know. I really can't say because I think, again, the decomposition, if she's severely decomposed in some very, very cold waters, like, we literally covered a premium episode of, the Lava Lake murders, and that was a period of months with
Yeah.
those men in icy waters, and they came out and they were almost perfectly preserved. Not to say it's a one-to-one, but I'd be curious to hear from a forensic standpoint after 23 days in some very, very cold waters, why the body would be so decomposed. And if it was, is that suggestive that the body wasn't in the water for the entire time?
That's a really good
Because
point.
Mitrice Richardson is also an interesting case similar to that, where her body appeared partially mummified, which was suggestive that although she was found in the woods, they believe she was actually kept indoors somewhere for something close to like 6 months, maybe.
Mm,
So the idea that maybe he could have been keeping her somewhere else, but the cause of death is really what seals the deal where I'm like, maybe she was in the water the entire time. If the cause of death is ruled a drowning, I'm assuming, if
mhm.
like water's found in the lungs.
Yeah, it was ruled drowning.
No other signs of struggle. That's really tough.
Yeah, I also
Really tough.
I was thinking about this, I mean, is there a way to drown someone without showing a sign of a struggle?
You pull their hair, maybe, but I feel like
Yeah,
even that would show something, or like you would see scratch marks maybe on the
yeah.
person doing it. It's tough to say. Really is tough to say, and I don't know.
I also wish they had questioned I didn't see this anywhere, but, like, questioned what Wayne had been wearing when he went out to dinner with those friends, and if it was the same outfit that he had on when he went to the 7-Eleven or when
Hmm.
police came by. Because I wonder, like, if he did drown her or if he had been outside with her at any point, I wonder if we could have been able to tell from his clothing.
That's
Um,
the stuff that we really have to, like, if we remember this case and remember to look at things down the line, because if her remains are gone, the only things that we can really look to is additional camera footage, witness statements, or phone records
yeah,
that can tell us the story of what happened that night.
yeah, exactly. Well, I certainly hope we do have a time where we get to put more pressure on it, but that is the entire case of Robin Pope from Maryland.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Really had never heard of it before.
I should also mention I because I think everybody else calls where they live Kent Island, but yeah, it's a very like little picturesque place just right out like an hour away from here. But I kept saying Stevensville, but I guess it's Kent Island.
You're going
Um,
by the map references,
yes, yes.
the true to the
So if we
geography.
have any Kent Island listeners or like Maryland listeners, I'm sure they're going to be like, wait, what? If they've never heard of this case before. But
Oh,
um, yeah, but that's it, baby. That's all I got.
that was quite wild. That was quite a ride, and I feel like I went through a lot of emotions on that one. Just like thinking, I was like lost halfway through, like thinking I was like, "Am I against him? Do I believe this?" I like
Yeah,
wasn't sure where I stood, and I'm still kind of in that gray area. It's so
yeah.
strange.
Well, I think he's riding that wave. I
Yeah.
think, and I tried to look him up. I tried to find him on like LinkedIn or like try to find like his like what he does for work. He keeps a very low profile after all this happened. So
Mhm.
if we've got any sleuths out there that know anything, I'd be curious.
And just for a legal disclaimer, we do not support the doxing of any
No,
individuals in the
no, no,
United
we do
States here
not.
on CreepTime the podcast.
We do not. We do not.
So-
Sorry.
I was like, do anything you do of your own accord is your
Yes, exactly.
responsibility.
Yeah, pharmaceutical
Joggers.
ad. Yeah, joggers, baby. Oh
Which,
my
by the way, I
god.
love the joggers you got me for my birthday. Thank you.
Good. Aren't those cozy?
They're so. I wore them the second I got back
Good.
to Jordan and David's Airbnb.
I just love the idea that you probably pulled those out and you were like, why did she give me joggers?
They felt luxurious, and I was like, I knew
Yeah.
Stu would get like a luxury kind of gift,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I did not click because I didn't read the card first, and then the charade thing was at the bottom and like flipped over. So I was like, oh, maybe that's just like, you know how in like a gift bag there's one of those little cardboard things to keep the integrity
Oh,
of the
yeah, yeah,
bag,
yeah,
like a
yeah.
floor to the bag. I thought that's what that was. I'm so happy I saw it.
I am too. Can I tell you, and this will be creepers are probably like, oh God, let me turn it off because they're going into housewives. But I will say this very quickly. I tried to get you a cameo from Sheree.
Oh my god.
When I tell you she has an upcharge for a quick turnaround, and I was like, even I can't do this. But I
Oh my
wanted to get you a cameo so bad, and she's on Cameo. So
Can I tell you
someday,
something?
yeah.
Cameo reached out to me over the weekend. I got not one but two DMs from them. They
Stop.
said, "Are you interested in joining Cameo?" And I didn't respond. And then they followed up and they go, "Checking in on this. Could you respond?" It's like
How much would you charge for a cameo?
$6,000. You want a personalized episode of Creep Time the podcast? Stu is an upcharge of another 6,000.
Hey, these conservative cups can come out for an additional $2K.
I'm just saying. I don't know. Cameo seems like a slippery slope.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know about that. Maybe
Yeah.
one day, but I thought it was so funny. Twice, not once, but twice over the weekend.
The follow-up, they're persistent.
It's like, we've got to get you on. Actually, Spotify manager, who we will bleep out from
Yeah.
earlier, did not mark the timestamp of when that is. She used to work for Cameo.
Oh, no
I didn't
way.
know that. And she was on, I think, most of the drag queens. She worked with Alyssa Edwards.
Love.
And she said Alyssa Edwards
I
was
can't
like,
do her.
I don't, hopefully
Oh,
it's
God,
NDA,
you're
but
so
she
good. I
said,
can't do it.
she said Alyssa Edwards was like so concerned and like run down from Cameo because she was like, I just can't keep getting in drag to do these cameos.
Yeah.
And she, Spotify manager for creepers who are listening, was like, you don't have to be in drag to do it. They just want you. Alyssa Edwards was doing full beat and a wig for every cameo and was like, what?
But you know Alyssa's a pageant queen. So she's
Yeah,
like, I gotta do full beat. on
she's not going to
every-
come on without a Coda mascara and a lace front.
And honestly, same.
That's how I start every episode of Creep Time the podcast. I know. If anyone knows a good lace front maker, I really am still searching.
Yes.
I'm looking.
Oh my God. Well,
That's probably a
thank you.
good place to wrap it.
Yeah.
6 hours in.
6 hours in. I know this was a little bit of a longer one, but hopefully it was juicy enough to justify that. But creepers, we're so excited to see you guys on tour. I cannot believe when this episode comes out. Just know that the next day we will be playing the Miracle Theater in LA. And it's
The
all
first
starting.
stop of the U.S. tour. Oh
She's
my
starting.
goodness gracious.
She's
She's starting, baby.
But creepers, with that, I guess we should say goodbye.
And good luck.
Bye, creepers.
Bye, guys.